Hello, hello, welcome back. I'm Avalon, and this is Voice Notes from the Chrysalis, my 21 episode podcast where I share all of the juicy golden nuggets that I have discovered along being deeply transformed over the past 5 years in celebration of my digital course, Discover Yourself, launching on December 21st for the early birds and December 28th for the public. Ooh, I'm excited to talk about expansion and contraction in this episode. And this is might be a familiar topic if you're familiar with like manifestation technique and I don't know, just vague spiritual community discussion. But I think it's really worth mentioning. And have a pretty recent example. Actually, I have many recent examples, but like a good clear one of essentially just trust the process. But really, ooh, when we are in the throes of being transformed, dying, and being reborn, I think there's actually a reason why, specifically, like we say being reborn, and you know what happens when you're being born as a human? There are contractions, muscular, labor, contractions to expand, to make space for baby to be born. That is like a biological process, and I feel like there is always an echo of that in our lives. So, and when we are transforming, and particularly like when we are stretching beyond what we have previously been comfortable with. Um, so I feel like when we are navigating life, we can feel these moments where all of a sudden it just feels like everything feels awful. Like everything, like we are waking up in a bad mood. And so I'm gonna speak as I experienced it recently, which luckily the contraction phases are usually like a day or two and not like weeks. But I have lived in like lives of my life. But I have experienced how like these contractions can be or periods can be like much longer, like multiple days, multiple weeks, longer. So thinking of you and I think it gets better with time because I it feels like it's just once you understand this, I feel like you can work with it. But the contraction can feel like, I don't know, just waking up and feeling like everything sucks. And if you're like an optimist like me, like that's a very clear sign. It was like, something. Now I know something's coming. That expansion's coming because you know what happens after the contraction expansion. So that's like the way to work with it. But the contraction often feels like, God, everything sucks. Nothing is going the way I want it to. I feel so sensitive and triggered, and everything feels constricting, and everything related to what you are wanting to leave behind that is still in your life is just like deeply triggering and bothers you to no end. Like way bigger reaction than like is logically like objectively justified. That's what I would describe being in contraction feels like, whereas being in expansion feels like you walk out into an open field and there's all this spaciousness and opportunity and positivity, and you can see what you are stepping towards, what you are moving towards, and that's in alignment with who you are and what you want. That expansion. And sometimes, like yeah, expansion can also be anxiety inducing. If you are expanding way faster than you're necessarily prepared for, if you have those limiting beliefs, that are like "Ah!" like deeply triggered in the background, then yeah, you're gonna yeah, it's the expansion can feel really anxiety inducing because you're suddenly like you're at capacity or like beyond your capacity, and you don't know that it's safe to be in that space, to be experiencing that because it feels so new. Our brains and our bodies just want us to feel in the familiar territory, even if familiar is not good for us. Sucks, but is true. Um, So, yeah, I have gotten to the point where when I am in contraction, I realize that, wait, that means this bad mood, this like triggered feeling, this sensitivity, this like having a hard time taking a deep breath, really upset feeling, like all of that feels like contraction. This is all possibly the last time I'm feeling this. This is my chance to release those triggers, those heavy feelings, that pessimism, those fears. Ooh, like this is the time to like feel it and let it go. Feel it and let it go. And get ready for the expansion and the spaciousness and the opportunity and for things to get good. And navigate that contraction with that faith. And honestly, this, I mean, hopefully this like knowledge and perspective like is helpful, but to some extent, like this comes with practice. This comes with a lot of practice. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, I think, at least from my experience. But the example that's happened recently is when I got laid off. And ooh, like gosh, I think definitely like the week after I got laid off, but maybe I think it was actually more like 2 weeks that I got laid off because it was just like sinking in and I was just letting myself process the feelings and, move past like the tidal wave of like emotion. Um, and once that started to happen, I've realized that I've been laid off. I have like a couple more paychecks, I have severance, got that figured out for the context, I for the pat like I had my previous job for I was at my previous department for 5 years, and 3 out of 5 of those years I was actively looking for other jobs, not because I didn't like where I was and the work I was doing. I did like where I was and I did like what I was doing, but I was not able to be compensated for the value of my work. Because I worked at a very old institution that liked to compensate you based on your years of experience, which is really just compensating you based on your age. And I was like, I am young and I am doing really high quality work, and you will never be able to pay me what I'm worth. I was also working at a nonprofit, and apples and oranges. So for 3 of those 5 years, I had been looking for other full-time jobs in my industry, pivoting a little bit to different areas. But I had applied to hundreds of jobs, and I had gotten one interview, literally. And I am, for context, like I have like career coached many other people. Like I think the late my latest number is like I have helped 7 people get jobs in their desired field within 6 months of starting to look. Like that, I think those are pretty good stats given the job market that we're in. I haven't helped someone very, very recently, so who knows? But because things, job market continues to be awful. But I am literally someone who has successfully helped many people get their ideal jobs. And for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just my own blind spot, but like I was like, okay, um, I just got laid off and I feel like it's gonna be like really hard to get another full-time job. And then it like really sank in that I really want to work for myself. And as that sank in, that that was like a huge contraction. There were like multiple days where I was just freaking out. I was extremely emotional. Like this was like second wave after the layoff, like very justified emotional reaction. Um, this was, yeah, really, really intense emotional like reaction, instability, and just freaking out because to some extent, like when you realize what you really want, at least in some cases for me, like that means now I have to do it and I don't know how to do it. And like that freak out of like, I want this so bad, but I've never done it. I don't know how to do it. And then literally Like I think the freak out happened like on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time frame. And literally the next week, I had a great interview for like a content creation gig. I got a signed contract with my first freelancing gig, and I got unexpected money from someone who owed me money that I thought I would never get back. And I felt that expansion and that possibility in the universe saying, you can do this. You can work for yourself. You can, like, you have this desire and it's there for a reason, and we are going to support you to do that. So, yeah, I now it's so much easier when you're seeing your friends go through it or loved ones, family members go through it, and you're like, this is the contraction. This is the last time you will have to feel this level of fear because you're about to step into that opportunity and that expansion. I try really, really hard to remember that those triggered contraction moments are the time to release everything and let it go so that the expansion can come in and all the good stuff. So those are my thoughts. And if you need help navigating the contraction and the expansion, and you want to cut through, again, all of the stuff that isn't yours and actually live your life for you, I would highly recommend my course, Discover Yourself, coming out on December 21st for the early birds and December 28th for everybody else. Um, yeah, it will help you cut through the BS and actually navigate your life towards what you actually want. And you will still go through the contractions, but at least you'll be moving towards the expansion that is yours for you, ex aligned with who you are and what you want. So, yay! Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.